What is your name?
My name is Soul, also known as Crow. This is my project, The Failure Confessions.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What is your age?
I'm 20 years old.
What is your passion in life?
My passion in life is exploring myself and my experiences, my emotions through art in many different forms, mainly music.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like projects like this too, where I get to talk to people that I admire, and I learn about a lot about myself through other people. So yeah, this is definitely part of my passion.
What culture were you raised in?
I was raised in Argentinian American culture. Both my parents are from Buenos Aires, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California.
What's the first thing that you think of when you hear the word failure?
I think about disappointment. Yeah, lots of shame. Yeah, mostly shame and disappointment. Yeah.
What does failure mean to you?
Failure, I've come to realize that failure means that I've dishonored myself and mainly like given away my power. I feel like I've failed the most when I have put other people's opinions above mine, especially as a woman. I'm gonna go there already because women were not really raised to think for ourselves, and I think that really impacted the way that I acted in the world, you know? And it's not necessarily like the way that my parents raised me or anything, but it's the way that I was taught by others in this country. My experiences like with schooling and anything I was involved in, I felt like I was molded and taught that I, shouldn't really think for myself. And it was impacted especially because I was like, as I learned that more and more from others, I actually began to perform in a more masculine way, because I thought that that was like the way that I would gain more control over my decisions and gain more respect, numerous things.
So do you think the culture you grew up in influenced the way that you perceive failure?
That is very interesting for me because I was raised in two cultures simultaneously. Like when I was a baby growing up, it was totally like Argentinian culture. Didn't really feel much of an influence of American culture until I began schooling. For me, that meant dancing with scarves to loud music in my living room and painting in my backyard naked and like making up fun games with my brother. And Argentinian culture is very lively, very humorous, very light and easygoing, very touchy-feely, loving, talking about feelings and emotions. And if you're raised in America, you know that it is not that way over here. And that, obviously it's different in the different states and regions, but overall it's kind of a more formal country in terms like socially. So being raised in this kind of free spirit, loving household, and my family being very warm and loving and open, and then going into school with a bunch of American kids that were raised very different than I was a huge culture shock, even though I was raised in this country. And that was kind of, I think, the first time I can think back to when I felt like I had failed, was socially relating to other kids in school I was just I felt very alienated and I felt rejected by the other kids. I was like, whoa, I'm different. And I have failed to make friends, and I have failed to feel loved in the world.
Mm.
That was like my first experience with other kids and with school, and moving forward, like in different like extracurricular activities and school, I was always doing things differently, and it wasn't in line with what was expected of me. And which honestly just brought out the rebel in me. I just like wanted to do everything even more my way and just piss other people off.
Was your family supportive of you as you became a rebel and started to do your own thing?
Yeah, my family was always super supportive of that. Luckily, like so lucky, because if I I was already so sad, like so deeply sad. If I didn't feel supported from my family, like I don't even want to think about where I would have been or how much harder it would have been for me to get to where I am now.
What failure do you feel has been the most impactful in your life?
I talked about like giving my power away, and about how, as a woman, like I became more masculine to kind of overcome the fact that I felt like I had to give my power away as a woman, or a girl at that point. So I kept being unhappy because I was giving my power away to like the societal structures and the societal expectations of who I thought I should be. And then that like translated into how I made some decisions in my music career, still with that belief that my truth wasn't valid and what I believed in wasn't valid. So like I think my biggest failure was with the project that I did before Crow, when I was going under Soul, and which leads us to this project with the shirts. That's why I'm like attaching that to this video series, Failure Confessions, is because to me that was a huge failure. And why that project was a huge failure to me was because I spent so much of my time trying to comply and put my trust in other men that were like just totally manipulating me and manipulating my creativity and my art to conform to their idea of success. And I gave away so much of my power and so much of my trust. I mean, to anyone else, that's just not okay. When, as you know, when you're a businesswoman, it has to be under your control and under your idea of what is right. Art is so much about that. Art is truth. Art isn't about what someone else thinks is right. That's their art, it's not yours.
What did you learn from it?
To connect with myself and keep learning about myself. And I learned the most about myself through my failures, and I used to resent that a lot. And through this project I'm really trying to embrace it and learn more about the dynamics of failure and culture and the impact of that. So
what do you wish the next generation could learn about failures earlier on in their lives?
I just wish that there's more space created for failure. And I also agree with what you said earlier about learning from experience, and I do think it's incredibly important. I just think it should be shared. Just talk about it, talk about your experiences, talk about how you're feeling about it. find ways to learn from it instead of like, I feel like we create so much shame and we try and hide our failures instead of talking about them. And then we repress that and keep repressing it and repressing it, and then it becomes this like huge bundle of shadow work that you end up doing later on in your life. So if we could just, get the kids to talk about it, I think it'd be really cool. So hopefully this sparks a conversation beyond our circle.
What advice would you give to someone who is learning how to embrace their own failures?
Have compassion for yourself. The only way out is through, and it's better for you, it's better for everyone. You're going to learn so much about yourself, and it's going to help you in the future. You're going to be stronger. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to end sometimes. But you gotta just feel it and go through it. And you'll end up on the other side one day. And then you'll fail again. So it goes. So, yeah.
What is something you wish you knew when you were processing your failure?
My failure was like very self-inflicted because I was being so manipulated by this one person that everyone, when it all came crashing down, it was like, I told you so. Like no one had compassion for me, which is fine. But I learned to like really just be there for myself.
So how has that pivotal failure that we spoke about transformed you into a wiser self?
Being separated from my truth and like feeling so disconnected and sad, it's actually like helped me connect more to my truth, embrace it in much more of a radical way, which has been a really intense and beautiful experience. Reconnecting almost, to who I was before I went to school. Like that little girl dancing naked with the scarves to the cumbia, like that's me. And it's helping me be more honest and bold in my art, and it also allows me to have more compassion for others, because we're all just finding our way. And I think that's how it's transformed me.